Hey everybody, I want to talk about hustle culture today. It's something that is very unique to, I think, American society that you don't necessarily always see in other countries like places in Europe. And I want to explore why hustle culture exists and why it's not good for us. I don't believe it's good for the human condition, for the human spirit. And I think that it's something we really need to take a step back and really look at and analyze critically as to why it's so prevalent in American society and why it's so bad for us to begin with. You know, you look at hustle culture and you look at where it exists primarily within the 9 to 5, but it also exists on the side, you know, starting a side gig and things of this nature. It's all over the place. And I think that, you know, we really have to ask ourselves why. You know, that's always what you need to ask. I think when you're looking at something critically with a critical lens, ask yourself why it exists and to whose benefit. Do you actually benefit from hustle culture? So like, you know, for those of you who don't know, hustle culture is basically this mentality of you need to keep grinding, you need to be productive, you need to keep achieving your goals and go beyond your goals. And whether this is within the 9 to 5 context, well, you need to work 9 to 7, 9 to 8, 9 to 9, you need to wake up early. You know, you need to be in there crushing your goals. You need to work harder than the person next to you so that you can achieve your goals, so you can make more money and get more stuff, right? Hustle culture, in a sense, is a means to an end. The means is the hustle culture, working hard, working extra hard, working extra hard. And the result is you get more stuff. You get more money. You get more materialistic possessions. Houses, boats, cars, more motorcycles, yada, 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 right? You get more stuff is the point, right? Your bank account grows and you have more to show for it. And the idea, the central premise behind hustle culture is that you need to be productive because that's what's going to give you fulfillment in life. That is what's going to make you happy and fulfill your sort of human condition. You'll reach the top of your Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you're going to be self-actualized, you know, because you have more stuff. You have more materialistic possessions. And I don't necessarily believe in that. I don't think that just because you have more stuff, more money, you're going to be happier. You know, there have been plenty of studies that have been done that show that once you reach a certain salary, and this is going to be dependent on region and your financial or familial circumstances, you know, you're not going to be any happier receiving more money, more stuff, more materialistic possessions. You know, whether that's $85,000 a year, $105,000 a year, $125,000 a year. Once you reach that point, everything beyond that is extra. You don't need it to be happy. It's excess. And that's really what our society seems to be about. You know, you go on social media and you look at people who parade around and flaunt excess, you know, and that's what people seem to be chasing. They think it's going to make them happier, but it isn't. And I think that we fall into this trap of, oh, you have to be more productive because then you're going to be more satisfied and then you're going to feel like you're really fulfilled. And then you get there and you don't feel that way. You know, and I think part of it is comparing yourself to other people, right? We've all bought into it as a culture that, oh, well, the guy next to me is rising and grinding. I should be doing the same. Otherwise, I'm a loser, you know, like that's this mentality that we have. We're always comparing ourselves, and social media certainly doesn't help. And so we all buy into it. And this is, I think, by design. This needs to exist in order for the American system to keep going, because we're a giant shopping mall. We're a giant corporation, a giant business. If we don't have all of us doing this, then the entire system collapses. You know, that's how we're number one, is that we have a society that this is where businesses come to open up their businesses because we have a culture like this. Aside from lower taxes for businesses, that certainly helps, but we also have a culture that values making money. People often say, oh, Americans don't have culture. I hear this a lot, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Americans certainly have a culture. The culture is money. The culture is stuff. The culture is shopping. The culture is buying things. That's American culture. We have a culture. It's just not as refined as maybe some of our European counterparts, you know? And I think we've lost touch with our human side in order to be productive. And let's be clear, right? Like, I'm no different. I have fallen into this trap. This isn't my first YouTube channel. I have had several YouTube channels over the course of my life. So I am certainly not immune to this sort of like hustle culture. You have to be productive. Today, I was playing video games, right? Just playing some video games, having myself a good old time. It's Saturday, and I was just like, but I should record a video and be productive because I'll feel better about myself. But is it really doing this for me, or am I doing this because I feel like I have to do something in order to be productive because I'll feel like I'm supposed to be fulfilling myself in some way, that I'm achieving my purpose within American society? That other people might be doing something similar. Other people aren't playing video games. They're not enjoying their leisure time. They're doing stuff. And so I made this video. Here I am, right? So I'm definitely not immune to this. I acknowledge it. I think it's something that is systemic. I don't think it's necessarily a conscious choice. And I think it's a problem that we all have to collectively realize that we need to address, because I don't think it makes us happy. And the studies seem to show that. Right? Whether it's how much money you need before you feel like you're comfortable and happy, or whether it's, World Index happiness surveys that show that we're like number 20 something relative to other countries. The data seems to show that more stuff doesn't necessarily make us happier. You look at celebrities, you look at people who have reached the magnum opus of stuff, right? They have all this shit. And you see this time and time again where celebrities are addicted to drugs, musicians die of an overdose. Doesn't seem to make them happier, and they have money and they have fame. And of course, there's going to be a little bit of a bias, right? Because people that typically end up in that kind of industry, they may have a predisposition to addiction, to depression, because they're a little bit different. They're a little bit quirky. So there is that to consider. But it does show us that these kinds of people, even when you reach the magnum opus of your self-actualization, supposedly, you're still not happy, And again, I think this is by design. This exists because we need to keep this train rolling. We need to be competitive on the world stage. We're all soldiers in a corporate war for the economy, for GDP. But what about our happiness? Is that what makes us happy? Grinding and being productive? I don't think so. I think what makes people happy is it's a tale as old as time. It's community. It's familial connections, interpersonal connections, whether it's your family, whether it's your girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, pet, your goldfish, I think it's that sort of interpersonal connection. It's people. It's the human condition that makes us happy. It's breaking bread over a fire, These days you might go sit down at a restaurant, whatever floats your boat, but it's doing that. That's what fulfills yourself. That's what fills the soul, I believe. Not working 9 to 9, And to be clear, yeah, for someone else, of course, everyone thinks that sucks, but working for yourself as well, just kind of grinding, but for what? For what? So you can have more stuff? I don't really think that it makes people happier. I don't believe in it. And I don't think that's why it exists. Yeah, if you do subscribe to hustle culture, there is certainly a correlation between subscribing to that mindset and then increasing your chances of having more money and more stuff. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who do subscribe to that mindset and they don't succeed. They don't make more money. They're in the rat race and they just never get to the top. They never get that cheese. There's plenty of examples of this happening. So there is something to be said for, hey, you're not even going to get what you want if you subscribe to hustle culture. And there's plenty of examples of this. Of course, there is the other part of it where if you don't subscribe to it, you do hurt your chances, for sure. But it's like, does it really even matter? Do you even really want it? What is it for? Because when you subscribe to hustle culture, what it does is, if anything, it takes you away from those interpersonal connections because you don't spend as much time with your loved ones. You're working more. And then when you go home and you can give them your attention, you don't have the ability to give them that attention because you're exhausted. Your cognitive capacity is at its breaking point. You see this all the time, stories, right? Father comes home, can't spend time with the kids, or if he does, he doesn't put much effort. Kid's got to go to bed. Kid got to go to school tomorrow, and he's got to go to work. Interpersonal connections are breaking down because of hustle culture as well, And at the end of the day, the way that I always like to look at it is when the Grim Reaper shows up at your door and it's time for you to go, who's going to be there, to see you off? Is it going to be your boss? Is it going to be my YouTube channel? Your subscribers, your coworkers? No, it's not. None of those people will show up when you're at your last day. When it's your last day, you're about to draw your last breath. None of those people will be there. It'll be your interpersonal connections that will be there for you. And I think that's a big part of it as well. Is like when it all comes down to it, we're all going to the same place, and so that's when you're really going to know what matters. All that money you tried to work for, all that stuff, all your cars, it's going to collect rust, and that's going to be it. You'll have nothing to show for it at that moment in time. It won't matter. So I think that in the end, the hustle culture, if anything, not only do you sometimes and many times not achieve what you're chasing, but it doesn't make you happy even if you do achieve those things and you do catch what you're chasing. You do get that cheese, that carrot at the end of the stick. Still not worth it, I think. So what I would say is that as a culture, and this is a pipe dream, I know, like it's never going to happen, but we should really reevaluate ourselves and look at our European counterparts and see how they live and what makes them happier. We've got things that do impact happiness, like social programs and things of this nature, of course, right? But I think that the way that we work and the way that we treat work, we live to work, we don't work to live, and that's a big problem, And I think that's a fundamental connection to our unhappiness. It's that, and in contrast, those lack of interpersonal connections because of a lack of time, Think about yourself, right? And all the friends you used to have in school. How many friends do you have now? Most people will probably say they have less friends. They don't have as many friends as they used to. Why is that? It's because you just don't have time to see them, My closest friend doesn't live too far from me, but we never hang out. Hang out maybe once every 6 months, and it's because we're always working, So you don't even have the ability to cultivate your friendships. And you can't make friends with coworkers, not really. You can try, but there's always going to be that layer of roboticism to it, right? You ever talk to coworkers? It's like pulling teeth, right? There's just this wall that's up. It's not a natural interaction because people are fighting for their lives every single day when they go to work. They don't want to say anything wrong and risk losing their job. It's an artificial environment. So your coworkers are not a good substitute for social interpersonal connections. They're just not. People try all the time, but it's not the same thing. And you're not brought together by any sort of commonality. You're just there because you work for the same company. So it's not like you have any sort of intimate connection, things you have in common. It's just random, right? You're 45 years old. You're talking to some 22-year-old, they work at the same company. You don't have anything in common. Unlikely. So what I'm trying to say at the end of the day here is that hustle culture is poison to the human soul, to the human condition. I think it runs in stark contrast to everything that the human being is supposed to be. Have these interpersonal connections, and there is something to say for being productive. I think, right? You want to have an honest day's work, of course. I'm not saying that's wrong. But I think that in our culture, we have gone completely to the opposite side of the fence where you have to not only do an honest day's work, but you need to do like 5 days worth of honest day's work, And it's all about that competition, right? Everyone's grinding. Everyone's subscribing to this hustle culture. There is many reasons for it, but it's fundamental to our culture. And I think it's destructive. I think it's destructive to the human condition, to our spirit, to everything that we should be as people. And I think it's a big part of why so many people in America are unhappy, and it does permeate every aspect of our society, from when you're in school or in your early days to when you're in high school. I've heard stories now, people in high school, I got to take this AP class and that AP class. They're stressing about college applications. Then it doesn't end there, right? Then you go to college, you're worried about passing your exams, you're worried about passing your finals, getting your GPA up, maybe you want to get a master's degree, then you finally get a job, oh, now you got to get a promotion, now you got to get another promotion, now you got to find a new job with a better salary because you got to pay for the house and the 2 cars, you know? Oh, your neighbor has a nicer car, they got a Jaguar, you got a freaking Honda, god damn it, now you got to work a little bit harder. You know, what are you doing? Your neighbor's working, they're hustling, they're grinding, you know, on a Sunday morning. They're doing their thing. They're making their YouTube channel. They're starting their side business, you know. They're doing something on the side and you're freaking watching football. What are you doing, bro? Like, get out there and grind. But does it make you happy, you know? Or are you just comparing yourself? Are you unhappy because you're not doing all these extra activities, grinding, hustling? Or are you unhappy because you think you should be doing those things because you're comparing yourself to other people? Think about that. Let me know what you think about this video, my friends. Leave your comments in the comment section below. If you disagree with me, let me know. Happy to have a dialogue and a discussion. Until next time, my friends, I'll talk to you next video. Take care.